Hello, my dear sweet friends, lords and ladies of the night. It is I, Duncan Trussell, the Skrillex of podcasting, and you are listening to the Duncan Trussell Family Hour podcast, voted by President Barack Obama as his third favorite podcast in the world. Thank you, Mr. President. It's exciting to me that you listen to my podcast, and I hope that you enjoy the next 2 years of your presidency. Hail Monsanto, Hare Krishna. Listen, if you're a reptile, as long as you feel love, that's all that matters. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, even the vilest of criminals, if their mind is absorbed in me, shall cross over the material ocean as easily as a kid stepping over a puddle. Imagine that concept, that there is no such thing as evil, and that if by some miraculous shift in your consciousness you move your attention to the good, if you transform your attention and just focus on the idea that we live in a benevolent, beautiful, opulent, flowing, juicy, delicious, incredible dimension that only wants to wrap you up in his or her beautiful arms and make sweet love to you until you drop your body and fly off into some alternate dimension where you can be in all places at once and experience whatever the thing is that you want to experience. That could be a reality that we're existing in right now, but because you have the thumbprint of some terrified asshole stuck into your subjective universe, because some awful judgmental prick took a walk inside your reality tunnel and took a big fat steaming fear dump in the middle of your paradigm, you think you exist in a dimension filled with hissing, biting, venomous, stinging, winged darkness that desperately wants to take you down at any single moment and drag you into the quicksand of entropy, mediocrity, and failure. Scared people are fucking contagious. They will inject you with whatever the goddamn thing is that they're afraid of, and you won't even know it's happened until way later on in your life. And then you look at your life and you realize, like, why am I always in a state of anxiety? Why am I always in a state of vengeance seeking? Why am I always in a state of considering and contemplating the worst aspects of the people in my life? Why am I always getting into conversations with people that involve how awful this person is or how awful that person is? Why am I a kind of missionary of the mediocre? Why do I feel like my job is to travel into the world and spread the bad news about how this person sucks, or this person isn't talented enough to be where they're at, or this person has failed in their attempt to do this thing or that? Why be that kind of missionary? Some people are a missionary of fear and they don't even realize it. These are the people who say that they are they just tell the truth. I just say it how it is, man. Those are the fear missionaries. They spread the bad news. The gospel translates into good news. And these people spread the anti-gospel. They spread the bad news. And you know right away when you're in the presence of them, because it only is a matter of time before they start talking shit about somebody. It's only a matter of time before they start raking somebody over the coals when that person isn't even there. It's only a matter of time before they start raking you over the coals. And they'll do it in a seemingly friendly way. A lot of these fear missionaries have gotten really good at their job. They're way better at their job than those sweet little Mormon boys you see pedaling around your neighborhood on the bikes, wearing the nice white shirt and the tie and the short hair, and they just kind of beam and glow with this awesome, culty, badass energy. You just want to invite them in and give them some cookies and let them hypnotize you with stories of their incredible God while you shampoo their hair and rub lotion in their poor, tired feet. But these fucking fear missionaries that exist in the universe, these people who want nothing more than for you to invite them into your reality's tunnel so they could just spray hot piss all over the wall of whatever happy existence you've managed to cultivate. These people are insidious because they don't wear any outfit. They look like anybody else. They wear normal pants and normal shirts. Some of them wear the costume of a boss or a successful entertainer. Some of them will wear the costume of your parents, and some of them will wear the costume of your brothers or sisters. But man, they will trick you. You won't even realize that you're in the presence of a servant of entropy until it's too late and they've already implanted into your head some kind kind of terrible, dark, awful news. You know the people I'm talking about, these fucking sons of bitches who as soon as they can will deliver to you the worst bit of news they could possibly come up with, whether it involves somebody that you know, or whether it involves something someone said about you, or whether it involves something they said about you. They'll get you, man. They're like those snakes in a nice, hot, beautiful summer day that hide underneath a rock and bite little kids playing frisbees out there in North Carolina. They're like that delicious burrito you see at the taco stand. It looks so good because you're super stoned, but after you eat it and you get home, suddenly you're spraying some of the vilest, noxious toxins out of your asshole and puking for 3 days straight. These people, they will inject you with horror. They will put their bile into you in such an astute way that you won't even realize it happened. You'll just think you're around somebody who's telling the truth. You'll just think you're around somebody who's saying it like it is, but somehow the way they say it like it is always makes the universe a little darker. And sometimes it's not them doing it to you, but it's you doing it to other people. Sometimes you'll find yourself having a delicious lunch with somebody that you haven't seen in a while, and all you can talk about is Ebola. You won't even realize you're doing it, but you'll suddenly come to and realize, like, oh my God, I suddenly transformed into a missionary of doom. I transformed into a servant of the Dark Lord. I, for a moment, had within my mouth the eye of Sauron and was casting a spell of words onto the day. I was trying to pour my fear into the ear chalice of my friends so that I could fill their brain up with my poisonous wine, and so that they will spend the rest of their day feeling a little worse than before they sat down to eat with me. They will get you. And maybe they already got you. That's another problem, is when you're coming up as a child, these sons of bitches can get their greasy, oily, fear missionary fingerprints shoved firmly into your brain, and you won't even know that you've got the thumbprint of a demon in your subjective consciousness, and that the majority of actions that you take in the world are not based on the current paradigm that you're existing within, but are based on a paradigm that you existed in when you were around a bullying, angry, confused, sad, lonely, broken person. And that happens to a lot of us too. This is why Gurdjieff, the mystic Gurdjieff, check him out. I talk about him way too much for somebody who's only read like half of a book about him. But what I did read really got into my head, which is that the majority of us are these kind of automatons, that we do not have any kind of true autonomy, but that we are these sort of spiritual machines running these behavior codes like a computer script, where we just run the same recurring code over and over and over again. If 1, go to 3. If 4, go to 2. These are the behavior patterns that you get stuck inside of, and the reason that you get stuck in these behavior patterns is quite often because you were in a survival situation when you were really young and you didn't even realize that you were in a survival situation. If you're somebody who got shot out of a pussy into the home of a abusive alcoholic, if you're somebody who got shot out of a vagina into the home of fundamentalist super Christians who spent the majority of your childhood transforming your glorious freedom into something that you should feel guilty about, then you might have developed behavior patterns that involve resisting or rebelling or fighting a guerrilla war against somebody who is trying to confine you to a horrific paradigm where you were trapped in a dimension where there was an angry God and a hell, or you were trapped in a dimension where you were supposed to behave like someone that you completely weren't. This happens a lot of times. It's a fucking archetype, man. It's in so many different movies. The kind of disappointed parent who can't believe that you didn't go in the direction that they thought you should go in, and that any failure that you have is a failure not because you were brave enough to try some risky new way of life, but is a failure because you didn't follow the path that was laid out to you by your father or your mother or your grandmother or your family. It's awful, man, and it can happen. And even when those people shrink into the temporal distance, when they become more background than foreground, you still contain within you the awful fear thumbprint that they shoved into your consciousness. And part of waking up is recognizing what behavior patterns you have that are no longer relevant based on the universe that you're currently existing in. You don't need to fire back every time somebody says something to you that you think is disrespectful to you or your friends. You don't need to punch so hard when somebody does something to you that you feel is deserving of a nice hard punch. In fact, you don't need to punch at all. The reason you learn to punch back so hard and the reason you learn to extract such vengeance on people is because that was the only way that you could survive in whatever early reality tunnel that you got blasted out of a pussy into. It's like when people come back from war and they've been surrounded by bombs going off and watching people die and explosions. That's an extreme case of what happens to anybody who went through a turbulent childhood. You get a kind of PTSD, which gives you some neurotic glitches, which create recurring behavior patterns and cycles in your life that if you have no mindfulness or you have no awareness or if you're completely on autopilot, then you will just think that the universe is cursed and that relationships are destined to collapse and that people are inherently bad and that the only way to survive is to steal or fight or cheat or get what you can while stabbing your brother in the back. All of these things you're doing because that's what you had to do to survive in whatever gravelly, bloody, subjectively horrifying universe that you got dumped into. And that happens to a lot of babies, man. A lot of babies get pushed into some video games that are set to high difficulty level. That would be hard for an adult to navigate, much less a toddler. How's a toddler supposed to navigate through a world where parents are screaming at each other, a world where behaviors are shaped by alcohol and alcoholism, or where behaviors are shaped by belief in an angry, invisible, dark God out there? The whole point of this long rant is that if you find yourself one of these people who tends to have recurring patterns in your life that seem inescapable, poverty patterns, heartbreak patterns, whatever the thing is, it really is important to sit down and examine the rudder on the ship of your life that you're using to steer through the multiverse and see if there is the shape of the rudder, which consists of the sum total of all the habitual behavior patterns that you use to navigate your way through every single day. Look at the shape of that thing and just see, like, wait a minute. Am I constantly trying to get revenge on people who don't deserve anything more than love? That happens to a lot of people who come from shitty childhoods. But I'm just saying all this stuff because the holidays are approaching and a lot of people get really queasy because they don't want to go back and hang out with their family. A lot of people not everybody. Some of you out there, your parents are still married and live in a warm, beautiful home where when you return, they invite you in with big smiles and they hug you and greet you and say the sweetest things to you. They're so very proud of your life, and your mother offers you goddess-like wisdom, and your father offers you patriarchal advice based on a lifetime of principled behavior and contemplation. Your family is overjoyed to see you, and you all compliment each other on the spiritual growth that you've achieved throughout the year. Everything's based on amplifying each other's life, amplifying each other's ability to experience pleasure, amplifying each other's sense of gratitude to exist in this universe. And when you leave with a kind of radiant, holy light glow. And as you fly on the plane, everyone turns to look at you because they can sense that you have, for a brief amount of time, walked through the gardens of paradise. And they want that for themselves too. And they also want to throw you out the exit door and watch your glowing, happy, rosy little face go plunging down to earth and splatter on the ground like a water balloon filled with guts. Not everybody emerges from a rosy childhood. For a lot of people, going home creates the feeling tone that troopers experience as they're being parachuted into the Korangal Valley in Afghanistan. What's really interesting about going back to hang out with your family is that it gives you this beautiful place to experiment with mindfulness. And you go back to your family not with the goal of extracting revenge, not with the goal of changing your siblings or your parents, not with the goal of showing them that you've rebelled against everything that they want, but you go there with the goal of observing the kiln that you are fired within. You go there to observe the manufacturing system that created many of your behavior patterns. You go there with the idea of watching so you can learn about the fundamental subjective DNA that is running the computer program that is your life if you're on autopilot. That's all. And that's, how often do you hear people say, I've turned into my parents? Well, yeah, you've turned into your parents not because of some kind of genetic predisposition to be an asshole, but you've turned into your parents because all of us got imprinted by our parents, and our rudders are formed by our parents. And so when you go back to hang out with your parents, you could be like, oh shit, I do that too. All the stuff that your parents do that might annoy you or make you feel bad or make you feel guilty, the idea isn't so much to confront your parents because they do that. I think certain schools of psychology advise that you do that. I don't know. But the idea is to observe those behavior patterns in a state of mindfulness with the intention of transforming whatever those behavior patterns are inside of you so that you can experience some autonomy in this incarnation instead of just being a spiritual machine being run on computer code that was blasted into your reality tunnel by people who more than likely were on autopilot. So there is a challenge for this Thanksgiving when you go back to visit your family, when you go back home this year, not with the intention of hiding. Go back home not with the intention of fighting, but go back home with the intention of just being mindful to watch the anvil upon which your life was forged so that you could determine which behavior patterns you have that you want to keep and which behavior patterns you have that you want to abandon or change a little bit. You can rewrite the computer code of your subjective universe, and this is the invitation that every single awakened being has extended to humanity. The incredible idea that you can abandon the behavior patterns that were injected into you by terrified people, and that the moment you let go of those behavior patterns, you become this autonomous being. You find that underneath those behavior patterns is just a pulsating love force, which is what all of us are. And that's the final little piece to throw into the stew of visiting your parents or going back home to your family for the holidays, is to recognize that in the same way that underneath all your fear patterns and underneath all your tendencies to tighten up and constrict and numb down and escape and get drunk and try to avoid dealing with the kind of awkward, uncomfortable, Cold War style tension that can often be rolling through a family, not just for your lifetime, but for generations. Recognize that underneath your brothers and sisters and fathers and mothers, there is this love that just is covered up with all these bits of computer code that are no longer necessary to survive in the paradigm that you are currently existing within. You don't want to go visit your parents like some kind of alien anthropologist studying them with like a clipboard. Oh, I see that this is another shitty thing you put into me. Because then you're just some kind of cunty victim. And what I'm saying could easily be confused as that. I'm not saying that. And you don't want to go there with a like Jane Goodall studying fucking chimpanzees like you're better than them, because you're not. You're just a human and they're just humans. The idea is to go there with this concept in mind, something that I heard from somebody who came to see one of my shows in Canada. The idea is not to change our parents. The idea is to change our kids. Well, I want to modify that. The idea is not to change our parents. The idea is to change ourselves, to work on ourselves so that we can become autonomous beings, so that we can experience freedom. Because the moment you rip away whatever the lens is that calcified onto your third eye when you were growing up, then you realize that the universe isn't boring at all. It was just the paradigm that you currently were looking at the universe through that was giving you the sense that you weren't existing in an opulent, beautiful, benevolent, incredible, juicy place. And once you recognize that, then you stop being a fear missionary. Once you recognize that, then you stop being a kind of robotic messenger of darkness. You stop being a robot that's programmed to only tell ghost stories to yourself and the people around you, and you turn into this spontaneous love fountain that accidentally is always doing the sweetest things to the people around you. And that's what they say that gurus and awakened beings are like. They just are always doing the sweetest thing. They don't have to think about it. They're not doing it to get some result. They're not doing it out of a form of manipulation. They're doing it because that is the essential state of human beings. At least that's what the really smart people say, who I've gotten to hang out with. I don't know if it's true necessarily, but I do know that if you go into any situation with the intention of being a little bit less of a robot and a little bit more of a sweetie, then that situation will at least a little bit change. You will notice that things begin to form around you in ways that you're not used to. And that's a really fun moment. And that happens in really small ways. It's not like don't think you're going to go home with like the intention of sweetness and everything's going to be great. It's not. You're going to react. You're going to be reactive. You're going to get in the same old fight. You're going to get into the same old behavior patterns. But at least this time you're going to be doing it in a state of mindfulness. At least this time when you do it, you're going to be doing it allowing for the possibility that the entire fucking thing can change for the better. And even if it doesn't, the one thing that did change was the way that you went into the situation. Because, as they say in Buddhism, one of the fundamental obstructions to awakening is aversion. And if you go into a situation and do what you can to remove the aversion, then the thing can change a little bit. It really can. Let's hope.